deal with extrajudicial killings in the country, and that is another top story we're following for you right here on News Center this morning, right here on KTN News. Speaking of extrajudicial killings, Mombasa was supposed to have some massive protests today over extrajudicial killings as the world observes the International Day of the Disappeared. Yesterday, Governor Hassan Joho led political, religious and civil society leaders in condemning the killing of a 16-year-old boy by police. He was to lead today's demos, and we'll tell you a little bit about why that has been postponed. Tony Katana Kenga was shot dead by police as he left a wedding party on the 12th of this month. Joho condemned the shooting alongside MPs Badi Twalib of Jomvu, Mishi of Mombasa County and Rashid Benzimba of Kisauni. So let's now talk to John Juma, who's our reporter in Mombasa, to tell us a little bit more about this.
Ameshtaki kupigwa, panga, kuuliwa, kudhulumiwa, ripoti gani imepelekwa, police station gani, hatua gani. We are willing as leaders here to work with anybody to ensure we bring tranquility, we ensure we bring security, we bring peace, cohesion, but we must be told, and we must be told with facts. Unajua, sio kutoa statement tu. You wait for a national day, and then you start saying, tunajua vijana wako hapo and we're coming for you. We want to tell you, kama wako tuambie ni kina nani, uhalifu ni aina gani, so we can help you. We want to help you. We want to come together as leaders, civil society, parents, teachers, clergy, so that we can work together to have a secure environment. Lakini all of a sudden, we are now having put on defense. Sisi ndo tunasema no, where, how? And as a matter of fact, we should be the ones saying, you give us peace and security. So I want us to be clear. Sisi tuko hapa, we want answers. I particularly will not sitovumilia. I want answers. Tony Katana, I want to know why he was shot. It's as simple as that. And what action will follow. Kwa sababu unajua uwezi kupiga mtu risasi na unyamaze tu.
Sijui pengine ni generation nzima ambayo kwamba inakuwa targeted ya kwa watu waweze kuuliwa kiholela holela. Mwanzo ilikuwa sababu ni ya kuwa haya ni mambo ya Al-Shabaab, hawa ni terrorists, hawa ni watu ambao kwamba wako katika Al-Qaeda. Pili, baada hapo sasa yamekuwa ya kwa hawa ni wakali kwanza, sijui wakali wao, wakali nini, all very very fictitious names. Mambo ni kama wanayapanga kila wakitafuta sababu yoyote ya kuweza kuua watu kuholela holela, wanatafuta mambo kama haya. Na mimi nataka kuambia wenzangu na muninukuu sauti yangu, tuko katika wakati ambao tutaingia katika sera za siasa hivi karibuni. Na si ajabu ukasikia na wengine wameanza kuangushwa ikatumika ya kwa hii ni mambo ya kisiasa ambayo kwamba yamefanyika.
Jambo hili mara nyingi huwa tunalizungumza, tunalikemea kama viongozi, lakini baada ya kuzika tunaona mambo haya yananyamaza. Sasa tunauliza serikali na wale ambao wanasimamia mambo ya usalama, wakati wanatuambia kuwa sisi tutafanya uchunguzi kujua fulani ama fulani amekufa kwa njia gani ama dhamira ilikuwa ni nini, hatupati majibu. Jambo lile linaenda na linazama vile vile. Na mimi kama kiongozi naona ni kwamba kana kwamba kuna jambo fulani ambalo pengine la tokota ama la chemka ama linataka kutupatia message fulani katika jambo hili. Hatutalichukulia kirahisi kwa sababu haiwezekani itakuwa kila saa tunazungumzia tu. Juzi na jana Kwale kulikuwa na mtoto Umazi ambaye alipigwa marisasi, na niseme kwa Haki Afrika shukrani sana za dhati kwa sababu mulishughulika kuhakikisha ya kwamba haki inatendeka.
We are equally organizing for a mass demonstration to be held very soon at a date to be communicated, where we will be joining other colleagues to ensure that this issue of killings and disappearances is far and wide heard, so that we can address the issues that are being seen here in Mombasa.
All right, so let's speak to John Juma on phone now, and he's our reporter at the coast. John, good morning. We understand the demos that was scheduled for today have been postponed.
Yes, the demos are not taking place today. I've spoken to the director of Haki Africa to organize these demos together with the elected leaders of Mombasa, and they're saying that they're not doing it today. Instead, what they're doing, they're still calling upon all relatives of victims of extrajudicial killings in Mombasa and in forced disappearances to come forward and share their cases so that they can be litigated. That is, they'll be presenting a case in court so as to force police officers not to continue with the so-called extrajudicial killings as they allege. The current outrage was caused by the recent killing of the 16-year-old Tony Katana Kenga when he was leaving the wedding in the area of Kongowea at night. According to the post-mortem results last week, is that he was shot twice, one at the head and one on his back. And the report says that the shooting was on close range. What has angered the leaders and the civil rights organization is that why was he shot dead? The police ought to have arrested him and then present him to court, charge him so that he's still innocent, because police argue that he was a member of a gang, something that the parents is disputing and the leaders are disputing. So what they're saying is that they can't take it anymore. For a period of 2 years, Haki Africa say that they have a record of over 70 people who've disappeared mysteriously, and they suspect some of them could be dead by now.
Okay, all right. Thanks very much for that update, John Juma, joining us from Mombasa. That demo that was slated for today to be led by County Governor Ali Hassan Joho has been postponed. But John Juma talks about an important issue, and he says from the records there, they're saying over 70 people have disappeared, and that is why it's an important conversation to have on this day, August the 30th, the International Day of the Disappeared. And let's talk a little bit more about this with Otieno Namwaya, who's a Kenyan researcher with Human Rights Watch. Good morning and thanks for joining us on News Center. So let's talk about this day. I mean, it's important. We're talking about over 70 people. That's in Mombasa County alone. But the truth is we don't have real facts and figures. And this is not just in Kenya, but around the world.
Yeah, that's true. We don't have the data, actually. The problem is that when you're talking about an enforced disappearance, you're actually talking about people who have been arrested or taken away by state agents, that is either the police or the military or provincial administrators. And then after being taken away, the state does not admit they have them, and then there's no investigation.
And they're never produced in
court.
And they're
never produced in court. So right. The state is obviously an interested party, and therefore it will not be interested in sharing that data. So part of the problem is that when you're talking about an enforced disappearance, the state is a player, and the state is actually supposed to be the major contributor for this data.
All right, yeah, and that is part of the problem then, because how do you start to address an issue and you don't even have facts and statistics? And this then points to, I mean, the government in terms of providing information and working with organizations such as yours, Human Rights Watch.
Yes, actually for us, the cases we have been talking about, and I think even Kenya National Commission on Human Rights and other organizations like Amnesty, which have actually been also working around these issues, and IMLU, we have actually been talking about the cases that we have documented and confirmed that they qualify to be described as an enforced disappearance. However, we know that these cases are not exhaustive. There are many other cases that we know of which did not make it either in our report or any other organization.
Or in press reports.
Or in press reports, they have not made it there.
Right.
So that is actually part of the reason why in the report that we released last year, we were urging the government to set up a commission of inquiry which should go around the country documenting these cases, so that at least we get to know exactly how many cases are we talking about in the country, because there seem to be a rising number of cases that nobody is talking about. even in our case, for example, we are just talking about northeastern Kenya. We're not talking about the whole country.
Right.
And we are not talking about all the killings. We're just talking about killings of people suspected to be linked to Al-Shabaab. That's all.
Right. And that's then the next conversation, because enforced disappearances, and correct me if I'm wrong, based on research, have increased with the increase in the war on terror. And, you know, many making the linkages, some saying that the government is using the war on terror as an excuse to clump down heavily, you know, on some of these individuals who are said to be suspects. And so even, you know, as the war on terror has increased, so has the number of those who disappear allegedly at the hands of the state.
That is true. And that's why we have actually kept telling the state that this strategy does not work, because when you keep doing this, you alienate communities, and communities begin to perceive the state as an enemy. And when they perceive the state as an enemy, they become hostile and refuse to provide intelligence. And then this actually undermines the strategy that the government is actually employing. So the other problem is that when you do this, you push communities away, and that makes it very easy for extremist groups to recruit these people. So part of the problem is actually the strategy that is being employed, disappearing people and not wanting to account, not wanting to listen to people raising these concerns, and dismissing organizations and refusing to work with organizations like Human Rights Watch, Amnesty, IMLU, Kenya National. And when the reports come up, sometimes they don't even read. They have a set script which they quickly churn out and say that is a lie. So
yeah, and that's an important point you raised, because with every report we've seen from your organization and a number of others that you've mentioned, you know, the government is on the defensive and saying, you know, all of these organizations are only looking at the rights of the suspects, so to speak, and this is, you know, an interesting era. The war on terror is different. This is not conventional warfare, and therefore there's some tactics that have to be introduced. So when we look at all of these reports, Human Rights Watch has done them, the KNCHR has done it with the era of terror, IMLU is constantly raising all of these issues. So, you know, what happens now? What does the government need to do? How do you work with the government? Or is it just always going to be Human Rights Watch on one end and the government on the other in respect to this issue? How can we start to see some movement forward?
I think part of this actually, the responsibility goes back to the government. The responsibility to investigate and ensure people who are responsible are taken to court actually is a government responsibility. It is not Human Rights Watch which is going to do that. It's not Amnesty, it is not Kenya National Commission which is going to do that. It is eventually the government which has to investigate and take people to court and ensure that this stops. And that is why, even though we go out there, do all these pieces of research and put all these big reports together, we eventually still call on the government, one, to stop what is happening, what we have found, and two, to ensure that these cases are adequately investigated and those who are behind them are prosecuted. So the key is actually for the government to change its attitude and begin to appreciate that something is happening and what is happening is not right.
Okay, all right, backstops with the government. Thank you.